Senate Majority Leader Tom Bakk joins me now to preview the 2014 legislative session. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Happy to be with you.
Let's begin with some of the key issues facing 2014. At the beginning of the 2013 session, you stood with several other senators and unveiled the top 4 legislative priorities for your caucus. One of those that did not make it through conference committee last year is minimum wage. Where do you anticipate that going? How quickly do you anticipate that getting out of conference committee this year?
Well, we did pass the bill, and the House didn't convene the conference committee until the last day of session, so we kind of ran out of time. But I think it would be safe to say we're going to put a minimum wage on the governor's desk before the Easter break.
So $2 differential. Do you think your caucus will go up to 9 something an hour, or do you think the House is going to have to come down to roughly $7.50 an hour?
Well, the Senate's at $7.75 for large employers. The House is at $9.50. I think all the action is really around something that nobody has talked about, and that is what is the appropriate minimum wage for smaller businesses. Because when you get outside of the Twin Cities, you've got a lot of smaller businesses, and that's where we're sensing a lot of the opposition is on main streets in small rural towns. So I think we've got to find a sweet spot. I think the $9.50 for large businesses is less problematic than I think what really matters is probably what's the number going to be for Minnesota small businesses. How are they going to be impacted?
Okay, Senator, also one of the initiatives that was brought up, one of the proposals was yours, and it was to require a supermajority vote for ballot initiatives. Is this something you're going to move forward with this year?
That was Senate File 4. We actually, I believe, have that scheduled for a hearing in the State and Local Government Committee on March 3rd, I believe. So we're going to send it. I assume it's going to pass out of there. I talked with Senator Hand today about finding bipartisan support for that. I noticed one of his senators actually is the chief author of a bill to do the same thing. So I think we're going to find some bipartisan support. If we have that, I'm very reluctant to pass something off the floor of the Senate with only Democrats' votes. But if we can find a bipartisan vote for that bill, right now today, I think we likely will send that over to the House and have them think about it.
Another proposal that made it to the Senate floor, almost made it to a vote for final passage, but it stalled, is the Anti-Bullying Bill, also known as the Safe and Supportive Schools Act. Do you anticipate that coming up quickly, sooner rather than later?
Well, I'd like to find some bipartisan agreement on that. I'm not sure we have that yet. I met with the minority leader about 6 weeks ago. That's one of the issues we talked about. He said he had some caucus members that are interested in being engaged in the conversation about that. I don't know if we're going to get there or not. I do think we will. The House has passed a bill. Senate will take it up and pass something. I don't know how much different our bill is from the House, but I do think something will end up on the governor's desk on that. I think the big question is, what does it cost? And I know the Minnesota School Board Association is very concerned about the bill. They've put a multi-million-dollar price tag on it. So, you know, I think as a legislator, I've always been a little bit concerned about unfunded mandates when we tell schools or local governments that they have to do things, and then we never send them the funding because the ultimate default of that ends up falling on the property tax. And because schools have nowhere else to go for the money. If they can't get it from the state, then they got to get it off local property taxpayers. So I think we've got to get the School Board Association involved too, and try to hit the spot where it's not overly burdensome from them, or we have to be willing to put state money in to fund it.
Senator, a reoccurring issue, Sunday liquor sales. We're expecting it to come up again. It's likely anyway in the House. Republican Minority Leader, Jennifer Loon is also offering up a proposal on Sunday liquor sales. Does it have bipartisan support or enough support to pass at this point, in your opinion?
You know, that issue's been around a long time, and I think it's going to be very hard to pass as long as the liquor industry remains against it. The on-sale or the off-sale liquor industry, the liquor stores that people go to, aren't asking for this.
The tap rooms are, which is the difference at this point. There is some within the liquor industry who's starting to push for it.
The only place I've sent support for it are in some of the border cities, towns like Moorhead, Duluth, Winona, maybe Stillwater, where we're on the border with a neighboring state that allows it. What I have heard over and over the years, and this isn't a new issue, is from from small liquor stores, especially municipals, and we have a lot of municipal liquor stores in the state that local governments run, is it doesn't increase sales any. All it increases is labor cost, and it increased labor costs significantly. When, you know, and the argument, the counter is, well, they don't have to be open. But if your competitor down the street is open, you're kind of forced to be open. So, you know, it increased labor costs by, you know, instead of being open 6 days, you're going to be open 7. So if that doesn't generate additional sales, that reduces profit margins. So much like selling cars, you know, we don't allow cars to be sold on Sundays either. So
Okay.
it's old history to it.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. For the sake of time, let's go to business taxes. Do you support a repeal of any of these? I understand that the Senate's being very cautious. They want to wait until the February forecast before really diving into tax issues. But do you support them if the finances are in place?
Well, it would depend on how much money is in the surplus, because it's about more than just the cost of doing it this year. Because once you take that revenue away, it gets taken away both years in the next biennium. So it costs twice as much in the next biennium to repeal them as it does in this one. The thing I have serious concern over is the Senate is not on the ballot this year. We will be here a year from now putting a new state budget together. And I don't want to overcommit on the spending side or on the tax cut side, only to find ourselves a year from now in a situation where we're facing another deficit, potentially might have to borrow again from schools or use other accounting measures. So I think we're going to be a little careful. I think generally the Senate feels that the surplus money, for the most part, and I'm not saying we're not going to do some new spending or some tax reductions, but for the most part we're going to use it on one-time uses that don't have costs in the next biennium.
Okay, Senator, it's a bonding year. Would you support a $1 billion bonding bill?
You know, I know that's what the governor's come out with, but the 4 leaders actually entered into an agreement at the end of session last year that we would only bond for $1 billion for the biennium. We did about $156 million last year, so there's room for about $845 million in a bonding bill based on the handshake agreement that we have. I intend to keep my word to Senator Han on that. What I have talked with Senator Han about is there a way to enhance the bonding bill by using some of this surplus cash that we have. And he, as recently as today, said that he's got caucus members that are interested in using some cash to increase the bonding number. So I think it's possible we're going to spend $1 billion on bonding. I just think some of it will be on capital investment. Some of it will be bonding. Some of it's likely to be cash.
Okay, and Senator, as we enter into this session, just kind of, if you can, describe to me the tone of your caucus moving in. Is it, you're talking about handshake agreements that you're willing to respect? Is that kind of the tone you're taking in with you?
Well, I think that the Senate's different than the House. We've got 4-year terms. I think in the Senate, both the Republican and the Democrat caucuses, we're not staring down the barrel at an election coming up this November. So, and when that's the case, you generally find the Senate to talk about a little bit less about election year politics and doing things that are connected somehow to the election. So I think we're going to continue to move forward on what I like to describe as good government positions, and probably a little less partisan rancor than the House has.
Okay, Mr. Majority Leader, as always, a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.